All right, welcome back. And today I'm joined by a world silver medalist in the women's discus from last September in Tokyo, Jorinde van Klinken, also freshly 26 years old. We're filming this on February 3rd. Your birthday was yesterday. So I know you're over in Germany right now because you've started your indoor season. So how'd you celebrate your birthday yesterday?
Yeah, I was just home in the Netherlands and my family came over and I actually cooked them a three-course meal, so it was a pretty good night.
So your birthday present was cooking for other people. They put you to work on your birthday.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy cooking and I just appreciate them coming over. Like my dad was coming over after work, so I'm not gonna leave them on an empty stomach here all night.
What was the meal?
Um, so we had pumpkin soup as a starter, then orzo. I don't know if that's something that you guys know in
Yeah.
the US as well. So I made orzo for a main, and then um, kind of like a tiramisu, but with yogurt. So kind of a fresh version of a tiramisu as dessert. So I think it
That
was success.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to spend the birthday with some family before I assume you get back on the road. Have a couple more indoor meets coming up all around Europe. But like I said, you've started your indoor season, three meets in Germany all last week, I think, three meets in 8 days. 1763, 1705, 1761. What are those marks kind of telling you, if anything, about the start to your season?
Yeah, I mean, I just never want to be in a 17 range. I think um if it happens one time, I mean that could be uh, a fluke, but for it to happen three times in a row, that's pretty embarrassing because that's not the level that I want to be at. I think technically I did get better this year compared to last year and the years before, and also over the course of the three meets, I did get better technically. So it's just pretty sad that that didn't show in the marks. So there's something we need to fix on the finish to actually make the shots fly well as well.
Yeah, I know when you have those kind of meets in sequence like that, like 3 and 8 days, it's probably tough to really get kind of that like reset and make those technical tweaks. When's your next one coming up? Like, do you have time to maybe get a couple good sessions in and try and figure out that finish, like you said?
Yeah, my next meet will be in about 2 weeks. It's like
Okay.
next Friday, so would have close to 2 weeks since my last meet. So I would definitely hope that we get some good sessions in and we can really work on that finish. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. How did you feel your fall went? Because obviously, it's for most people in the indoor season, just focusing on shot. You've also got some discus training in the fall there to kind of balance with that. So, how do you feel about where you were at training wise? I guess before heading back to Europe.
So I'm actually based in Europe. So I live
Okay.
in the Netherlands. I go for training camps to coach Blue 2 or 3 times a year. So I went there, yeah, almost at the beginning of my when I started training back up in November. Had a really good camp, both events, some very big breakthroughs. And I was, yeah, for both events, super hopeful for this season. And um, it was also very consistent. And I think it was just good things showing. And yeah, I thought it was going to be ready for both. And then it was in South Africa in January for another training camp with my Dutch coach, which was also a good camp. I never have my best training month of the year in January. I don't know why, but for January, it was pretty good. And actually, the disc is really tough for me during the winter, like
Hmm.
the training season, because I just don't feel as motivated because the pressure of the meets is not really on. So I really enjoy focusing on the shot put a lot indoors and yeah, I mean competing in it as well. So I always really enjoy the indoor season and we always have a lot of very cool meets in Germany that are always just so fun to go to. So yeah, I mean I am still really hopeful that good throws are gonna come. So hopefully during the indoor season already we will see some in the shot and yeah, hopefully I can have a much better year in the discus as well.
Yeah. How long are those training camp stints where you go out to Eugene, and where do you kind of like try and situate them within the year?
I try to go 4 weeks at a time. Um, Turned out to be the sweet spot for me. So I usually do November and then before the outdoor season, so usually April. Um, and then last year I went 3 times because I also had a gap in the outdoor season in July. So last year I added July on top of it as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've never really gone there for 1 or 2 weeks. That's just a little too short. So I do try to find um, time frames where I can go 4 weeks and just starting up the indoor season training so that I have a lot of pointers to work on back home and to get ready for the outdoor season are both very good time frames for me to go see blue.
Yeah, and so your Dutch coach, Hein, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah,
Okay, so I've kind of talked to like Mikolas about this in the past, where he is kind of balancing working with Mo when he was still at Cal, and then also having his European coach. So when you are home in the Netherlands, like how much are you and Coach Blue still communicating, or is it kind of when you're in the Netherlands, you're focused on your work with Hein, when you're in Eugene, you're focused on your work with Blue?
mostly the second way you're mentioning. I would say, I mean, he's hands on every day at my training, Hein. So he's doing the chunk of the work with me while I'm here. And then the communication I have with Blue when I'm not in Eugene is me sending videos to him, um, usually at least once a week, just to um, make sure we're still going in the right direction and to check if he's seeing the same things that we're seeing. Because we are executing Blue's vision still here. Yeah, I asked Hein 2 years ago if he wanted to become my coach. He was mostly coaching the younger athletes at the time, and um, I just saw a lot of potential in him as a coach, and I thought he could learn the technical part, and um, he did. So he got really good at um, yeah, basically Blue's vision and to coach me within that vision. And I think it's definitely a benefit that I don't have to work with two different visions, to say it
Yeah.
like that. Um, so yeah, that's working really good for me.
Yeah. When you were in Eugene this past fall, were you able to like train with Mikolas at all?
Yeah, but it was funny because he's throwing disc 3 days a week and I throw shot 3 days a week during
Hmm.
indoor season. So no, actually, I think he's throwing 4 days. But so on his discus days, I was usually doing shot put, but we were still throwing at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that squad there, I guess now because Jada's still there, and then I mean even Ben Smith almost throwing 20 meters. Kobe's throwing really well. Like Blues, he's always got a really great squad around him, but it feels really really special this fall.
Yeah. No, I mean, Blue is such an amazing coach, and I I always love it when people see that and they actually commit to working with him, um, and then to see the results as well. Because he does break down most people a little bit if they've been working on different things in high school or whatever, and then the second year, like for Ben now, is starting up, then usually people have some really big breakthroughs. It was the same with Jada. That's when she threw the 20-meter mark. So yeah, it's really cool to see the athletes lining up with the coach, and hopefully they can keep the magic going there for sure.
When you first got to Arizona State and started working with Blue, was there kind of that moment, like you said, where he was kind of like breaking you down a little bit? Like, was there, what was that, I guess, adjustment period like to not only getting over to the States, a completely new like lifestyle, but also a new coach that seems like he kind of has like his method of doing things from what the way you're describing it?
He does, yeah. I mean, he has a very clear vision, and at this point, obviously, I've really bought into it. I think he could probably make well, not, I won't say everyone, but he can make almost everyone I feel like really good. Um, and it was difficult because I was 20, almost turning 21 when I came over to the US. So I already, well, first of all, I'm already strong willed and a little stubborn in the first place. And he is too. Um, but also, I knew a lot about what works for me and what doesn't work for me already. So for him to come in with a pretty new view on some things was not easy. But then I think for most athletes, it is very possible to feel if there's potential in a certain cue. So if you try it, you can basically tell if it's going to make you throw better or not if you keep working on it. Um, so he did earn my trust. I mean, obviously within the first couple months, because 4 months in, I already threw 70. So I was pretty convinced at that point. But yeah, I mean, there were definitely some technical things that I really wanted to keep or I really didn't want to um, start doing that he did want me to do or did not want me to do. So we had some bickering about it.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. Um, I guess so. Like you said, we talked a little bit about the way that your training is in the off season where you aren't focusing a ton on disc. So then do you feel like that ever makes you have maybe a little bit of a slower start to the outdoor season? Or is it something where, because like you said, when you go back to Eugene and you're able to get a training camp in, are you pretty easy to like flip the switch and get right back into the flow of things?
Usually I have a very big turnaround right around April in the disc. So that's why I'm not really concerned if my training isn't going too well this time of the year, or at least if I don't think I can throw 70 right now. Because I think it will come. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is important to make that switch because you can't just not keep caring about an event and expect to do well. So yeah, and if you don't, then you're gonna hit a wall in the first meet, and you're gonna find it more important from that point on. So I think that's also maybe happened to me 2 years ago where I had a 62-meter first meet, and I was like, whoa, this is really horrible. I need to get it straight from here on out. So yeah.
And so I know I've heard people try and ask you about this in the past, and I think you've kind of interpreted it as them saying you should stop throwing shot. And I want to make it very clear, I'm not saying that at all. I acknowledge you're, so I'm just wondering, in your view, how does continuing to double at this level where you're making world finals in both, European medals in both, how does that benefit both your shot and your disc? How do they kind of build off each other? Because it is like the way you finish is a little different. Like I talked to Jada a little bit about that at the end of her NCAA career. So like how do you see them helping each other in your career?
They're in each other's way, so they're not really helping each other at this point. I think when you're learning the two and you're at a little bit lower level technically, they're helping each other because the movement patterns are pretty similar in some ways. But like you said, mostly the details like the finish or some of the positions or the start are definitely different. So you need to, what I need to really be able to differentiate the two. And um, I think it's just really rewarding or extra rewarding if I do get it right. Um, and people ask me this all the time, like, do you want to win gold in a disc or two medals in a different color in shot and disc? And I always say two colors, two different medals, because that's just worth more to me. I think it's more special to really be world class in both than to be the best in disc. And if I'm being honest, I don't think it's impossible to be the best in disc and still win a medal in the shot. So I think as long as I see that potential, yeah, I think it's worth it to keep doing both. And in the shot, there's still such big mistakes that I know, like even my record 1957 looks like shit. So I I just know that I could throw a lot farther, and I have the patience to wait for it to happen.
When you talk about medaling in both, obviously the thought goes to Rutger Smith, the only person to ever medal in shot and disc at the World Championships. And I, because like when you think there are some people like Maggie and I think like Jordan Geist still do hammer and shot, but with shot disc, like it's at this level, it's like you and Yorinda, and then Jarno seems like he's on his, or you and Alita, I mean, sorry.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Jarno seems like he's on his way there. So is there something in like when you're a Dutch thrower growing up, are you like is Rucker like kind of idolized in the Dutch throwing system growing up? Like is that the encouragement to continue to double?
I mean, he did show it's possible, so I think that is a part of it, but I also think it's just a coincidence at this point. Obviously, Alita and Jarno have very good genes and are both super
Mm-hmm.
talented in throwing both events. So, I mean, if it works out that way, I feel like it's worth it to keep doing both. I think for most people, they're very clearly a lot better at one compared to the other. And I don't think anyone has ever been world class at both and then quit one of them. Maybe Ryan Crowder, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I think if he wanted to, he could. I'm gonna turn this toy off because this is really annoying. He could still do both. I feel like.
We hope he does at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know, that
Mm,
elbow's causing problems now, but
yeah. So for him, it's really a decision. I feel like to not do both, but I think for most people, I don't know if it's the Dutch culture. I don't think so. But it is very funny that it's working out that way.
yeah. So I want to step back to 2025 now, the year you finally win that global medal. And coming into it, you had finished seventh in Paris in the disc after fourth at each of the last world championships. Did that result at the Olympics 2 years ago now, did that like add a, judging from the way that you've like talked about competition, I don't think you necessarily needed any more like fire or motivation, but did that add like a little more spice of like, I'm not letting something like that happen again?
Yeah, I feel like that seventh place was definitely one of the biggest lows of my career. Yeah, that was just really difficult to recover from. I think in the end, I did use it as more fuel. Um, but also, I just always look at it from the perspective of what do I think I'm capable of, and I was just I was just so convinced that I was capable of medaling. So I just want to do everything in my power to make that happen. Um, and I think during a meet like that, you can't actively think about your previous competitions. I know Val said to me afterwards, like, I think we both needed this revenge, and I did not feel like that as much as she did. Um, I was just there to make it happen that year, and I think I don't focus too much on the past like that. So yeah, I mean, I never want anything like that to happen again. The way it went at it's coming to look for its toy. um, to happen at like it did at the Olympics, but also I don't connect the two as much as
Hmm.
you would maybe think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying Val said that to you after the final in Tokyo? She said that about getting that little
Yeah.
bit of revenge?
Yeah. She said, I
Gotcha.
think we both needed this, if I remember correctly. And I totally get it,
Hmm.
like her saying that, but I remember that I did not necessarily feel like that.
Yeah.
I was just, yeah, I was there to do well on that day, regardless of anything that ever happened before.
Looking
Yeah.
at your 2025 season leading in Tokyo, I'm pretty sure it was your opener was your worst mark of the season, and then you kind of built every meet from there. Some 66s in there, and pretty much all year you were just right there behind Val at every Diamond League. And it felt like that kind of consistency and like baseline had really raised. Did you have a similar feeling about your season last year? And was there anything that kind of stood out, I guess, in training or mentality coming into the meets that you think was kind of helping that consistency level up a little bit?
I think my technique just got really good last year overall. I think there were few big mistakes left, and I think the years before I was still working on very big technical mistakes. And for years we've known that my body, or like my physical, how do you say it, like my physical capabilities were up to the standard that we needed them to be at, but it was really just the technical side that needed to catch up. So I think just seeing consistency in the technique and training resulted in better marks in the meet. Um, but what was different last year is that usually I look better technically in a meet than I do in training, which I know is pretty odd for people, but that's just how it's always been. And this last year, it didn't. So that's where my frustration came from. Like, I want to see what I can throw if I do look good, or as good as I do in training technically in the meet. Um, so yeah, I think that's where the consistency came from. I was really happy to race at base level, and um, to look less good as I did than I did in training, and to still pull up marks like that. Yeah, I mean, that was very positive about last year.
Yeah, that was when we had talked in Tokyo. That was one of the things that I think stood out most about the fact where you said usually your kind of general thing was you would throw way better in training than you would in meets. And last year it was kind of flipped. Is there something that you can kind of pinpoint as to why that was, like where that disconnect from training into the meets was as opposed to years previously?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the years previously my technique was just that bad in training that it could only be better in the meet. I don't know. No, I don't know. I feel like last year we worked maybe so much on my technique that we didn't get enough reps in at full speeds. And then when I did reach those speeds in the meet, my technique fell apart a little bit, maybe. Because my biggest mistake, I think, was pulling my left side in the middle. And I didn't really do that in training. And that is definitely a sign of someone trying to go all out, I feel like, to be worse at just keeping your left side relaxed. Um, so I think that might have been the case that previous years we just at a certain point um, decided this is what the technique's going to be, and now we just need to get reps at it to get the good rhythm, timing, and speed with it. And maybe last year we worked a little too much until too far in the season on technical things that we missed out on some of the speed reps. That's the only thing I can think of.
Gotcha. And while we're kind of in the technique side of things, there was a reel you posted a couple weeks ago about like the key to being like world class is pushing into the reverse. And I don't know
Mhm.
what my demographics look like necessarily. So I don't know how many like high school throwers actually listen to this. But for them, could you just kind of describe what that looks like or feels like in your throw and kind of how you achieve that?
Yeah, I think what I see a lot happening is people not taking a lot of non reverse throws. And in the vision that I'm trying to achieve, a reverse is just pushing so hard that you have to reverse. So basically, you can't stick your non-reverse because you're pushing on it too hard, and that's what makes you reverse. So how it feels for me is just pushing the right hand so hard that makes me switch legs. Basically, that makes me um, yeah, do the reverse. Does that make any sense?
So it's kind of like as if you're throwing as if it would be like a non-reverse throw, but then it's just so much force that it's forced to become a reverse.
Yeah, and push it through even farther than you would on a non-reverse. Like you want to push it all the way to the left side of the cage, basically, if you're a right-handed thrower
Yeah. All right.
from the right side.
Gotcha. Well, I hope there's someone out there listening to this that helps because I think that's you're seeing it more and more where throwers actually like kind of talk about technique on social media, and that's I think something that this community does a lot better than some of the other like events in track and field, but hopefully that can help some people out. Um, when you get to Tokyo last year, when you had kind of been, I mean, not to brag, but I think in June, I was like, Yorinda's a clear medal favorite. Um, did you feel like there was any, like a little extra pressure on you coming into this one, considering how your season had gone?
Um, so looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I really did pull that off. Um, while I was one of the favorites to do it and I actually pulled it off, but being there, my eyes were only on taking it all, really. So I just wanted to throw farthest I'd ever thrown, like produce my best throw in that final, and then see if I can compete with the other girls for the gold. Um, so I did. For some reason, I can really turn off the outside noise very well and pressure from other people, and I perform really well when I put some pressure on myself. Um, but that comes more from a place of knowing how we prepared and knowing what I'm capable of, and then me wanting to achieve that, what I think I'm capable of. So I don't think it was in my way at all, thank goodness. But looking back at it, I think I feel respect for myself for doing that when I was, I think, also one of the favorites to get a medal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the you talked a little bit about kind of the frustrations and like dissatisfaction that was such a kind of undertone in a way of your season last year, and like even in the mix zone in Tokyo, you were like, I'm still really frustrated with this one. Have you come to appreciate that silver medal more as you get a little more removed and you're like 6750 in a stadium in world championships where it's a meet that isn't always conducive to people throwing well? Like, has that medal come to mean more to you as you're now 4 or so months removed from it?
I think the medal means more to me. The performance doesn't yet. So I still believe that I could have and should have performed better. I'm just always at my best when I'm at the big meet. And I was this year, but not by a lot in the end. So, um, but the medal is starting, still starting to sink in a little bit. It's still difficult for me because I just look up to all the women that won medals before me, and I just still can't really make it um, match up in my head that I'm one of them now.
Yeah.
Uh, and at the same time, yeah, I mean, like I said, to realize that I was one of the favorites and to do it on the day does make me proud. So yeah,
Yeah, it should. I mean, you beat, I think there were three other world champions in that field that you ended up beating. In the competition, because that your best mark was on your opener where you were kind of sitting right behind Val for most of the competition until she hit that 69. Um, what was, I guess, your mentality in the later rounds where like you seem to be in a good spot for a medal, but you've got Loggy and Sandra and Bin Fang and Vanessa, who always brings it in these world championship finals. Like, what was going through your head as that competition was progressing in Tokyo?
yeah. I think I never really expect myself to throw my farthest throw on in the first round. Um, that's usually more a throw where I kind of turn my brain off and just like get a throw in. And usually when I fix one or two things from that first throw, I do end up throwing a lot farther, or if I go a little harder. Um, so I wasn't really too worried about the other people because I actually thought I would have to throw farther still to win a medal. So that's all I was focusing on. And um, yeah, it is a crazy stat that I beat three world champions. So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, I I was just disappointed that I couldn't pull off a better throw in the later rounds. That's usually where I do it. I think it is always a little bit mental still, even though you train for it so many hours. I do think, well, a little bit is actually an understatement. I think getting a medal on a stage like this is very mental, and I think the people that are most mentally ready probably get the medals in the end. So yeah, I don't think it's a good sign if you throw farthest on your first round. So that's something that I want to keep working on and make sure that I have more in the tank for the later rounds the next time.
Yeah, I bet. Well, after, like I said, the fourth in Eugene and Budapest, was there like kind of a sigh of relief about like finally not missing by like the thinnest of margins again?
Yeah, Budapest was a little rough. I thought my last throw was better than my farthest throw, but I ended up not pushing it through far enough, so I kind of lost it too early. Um, but that's something that you don't always feel very good. Um, so yeah, Budapest was rough. In Eugene, I actually got injured like a week before Worlds or two
Mm,
weeks before, so I was just so happy to even be able to compete and to throw as. I mean, I threw 64, so that's not always going to get you a
yeah.
fourth place either. Um, but yeah, to get the medal is a very different feeling from getting fourth. So that was very nice.
By late July, I guess, for the Eugene World Championships, had you transferred yet? Had you and Blue like decided Eugene was, oh, so it was like you didn't know that you were competing in a world championship in your like future home stadium.
I did not know. So Blue did tell us he was going to leave, so we were all in the transfer portal.
Hmm.
But he was originally going to go to a different school that I had applied for, and actually in the weeks leading up to it, I had all these issues with my I-20, and I was almost in the country illegally because we were switching schools. So it was very stressful.
Yeah.
And
Then
I
an
remember,
injury before world championships on top of that is like,
yeah, and I had the worst stomach pains as well during the comp. Anyways, that was a very special competition for me with not the best lead up. But I remember feeling like it was a home meet because I had competed there before at NCAAs. So that was funny. And then I don't know how long after, but weeks or months after that, we found out that we were actually going to transfer to there. And that was just so funny that we had just competed there at Worlds. So yeah, but not before. We had no idea we were going to go there. No.
gotcha. I get kind of the last note on Tokyo is it's now 2 years that Val has gone undefeated. How, like, as a competitor, is it the same? How do you, like, I guess, fend off discouragement when you are competing against, like, an athlete of that level where you can throw really well? I mean, I think you beat her twice in 2023 at a couple Diamond Leagues. But, like, how do
Yeah.
you just not let motivation slip a little bit or keep that fire that like you can convince yourself that you can beat her on any given day?
Yeah, I mean, I have been convinced that I can beat her on any given day. But obviously that's not an easy thing to do. I like that you're pointing out that she's stayed unbeaten because that is so impressive, and I don't think anyone else in track and field has done that over the past couple of years. So
Not even
I think
Mondo.
I know. So I think it deserves. some more recognition, but also that's something that I really want to put an end to as soon as I can, obviously. Um, so I don't think it's difficult for me to stay encouraged. I think it adds more fuel to my fire. Like,
Hmm.
and she's already won so many meets in a row. We gotta stop this woman at some point. So yeah, every meet there's another chance for us to try and do so and for her to try and defend her streak. So I think it's actually a cool addition to what the meet already is for us when we get to the meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first places you could break that streak this spring would be in Ramona. I
Mm-hmm.
know, given what we've talked about with kind of the transition from the indoor season to the outdoor season, that's probably not the best time for you to be throwing super far, but like, is there a world where we see you head down there this year? Or is that something you would want to do like someday? Like it just seems like fun. And judge from being there last year, it is a really fun meet to be at.
Yeah, so I have heard all good stories about Ramona. My coach really wants me to go there, so I will be going there probably. Um,
That's awesome.
I am a little I don't know how to explain the feeling, but I just what my plan was is to break my PB this year in the stadium,
Mhm.
and then I'd be all fine going to Ramona, and I knew I had broken my PB in non-windy conditions first. Um, and now I just feel like I'm possibly going to break it there in windy conditions again. And I've never thrown a PB since 2019 in non-windy conditions. So that's the only like thing that I feel negatively towards Ramona about. But I know it'll be a great meet, and even for so many good throwers to be there already makes it a great meet. But it's also I think going to be really cool to hopefully see the disc fly really far. So we'll see.
Judging from what you've like seen and heard from people who have competed there in the last couple years, how do you think the wind on that day in Tucson compares to the wind in Ramona?
That's a really difficult question. I feel like Ramona's going to be next level, but also when I was in Tucson, I remember people saying this wind is too hard for the 1K. Um, and I don't know if, I mean, it wasn't true for me, but I don't know if that was true for other people. Um, I think I think Val in an interview said that she needed kind of that Thursday meet or a meet before to adjust her angle and like adjust her throwing a little bit to
I think
make
that
it.
interview was probably with me.
Yeah, well, there you go. To your interviews sometimes, I'll admit it. Um, but I remember that she said that, and I think that wasn't the case for me in Tucson. So I'm sure it'll be a harder win in Ramona, but I don't know if that's necessarily better. I think what everyone's been saying is that hard win doesn't equal far throws one on one, which is true.
Yeah.
I have historically been a very good wind thrower. I feel like the past 2 years I haven't been. So we'll see if I can make it work in Ramona this next year. So I really hope so. I don't want to go there and throw less than I do in a stadium. That would be a big bummer.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the like competition Val did like the week before. Cause I remember I didn't even know that was happening. And then going into Ramona, I was like looking at her World Athletics page and I'm like, she threw 63 meters here. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is something that I think when people talk about Ramona is just like a cheat code. It's the people that don't understand the like skill and adjustments that actually need to go into throwing in the wind, especially with the 1K, like you said, because that adds in a couple extra difficulty factors with hard winds.
Yeah. It's just so light that it can, yeah. I mean, it can just move all kinds of directions. The 2K is just so much more stable on the wind. So
What do you think 7680 is like possible in Ramona? Like that Because Val obviously like a 2 meter PB last year, but she's still over 3 meters off what the world record is. Like, how do you kind of approach going to a
Yeah.
competition like that where you've seen what Mikolas has been able to do?
Yeah.
Like, is that even like a goal? Like, is that does that feel realistic at all? Even like
So
down the
how,
line?
so how I felt in Tucson is that the wind could have added 5 meters to my throw. Um, so that means you would only need to be able to throw 7180, which I think is possible. So I do want to say it's possible, but it's not something that I think you can just do on your average throw, obviously. um, I don't know if I see myself throwing that in within the next couple of years, but I'm sure someone can do it. Yeah. And I also just really hope so because I want it to be broken. I think no one breaking the jet. Well, I don't know how far they're off the women's jav record, but shot and disc records, the fact that we're so far off, I think, is also not benefiting the popularity of the event and also the attraction and the media time it's getting. And so I think it would be really good for the sport if we can somehow make it happen. Um, but also in Ramona, people are going to say, yeah, but it was the win. So I don't know how much really positive um, media time we're going to get from that. But
But what was the world record thrown in? Like, I know the video of like the old men's world record was like super windy. I don't think I've actually seen video of the women's world record, but
so I feel like it must have been windy, but I don't remember seeing any signs from the wind in that video. But I also don't look at that too often because I don't necessarily think those were the best technical
mhm.
models that we need to follow um, this day and age. But that is an interesting question. I know for the men that's true, yeah.
When you talk about like maybe not this year, but in a couple years down the line for you or something, when you look at getting better now, are there bigger gains to be had, do you think, technically or on the strength side? Or are they kind of balancing out and like you can't really have one without the other?
Um, so what we really started working on this year is catching it back a lot farther, and that messes with my technique for everything that comes after that a little bit right now. So I think that technical aspect can make me throw a lot farther because that just means a longer push, right? Um, and on the other hand, I think adding speed to the throw without losing my technique will give me the biggest increase in distance. Because, like I said, my technique usually falls apart still a little bit when I go all out speed wise. And I do think that I have more speed and strength in the tank to add on my throw if my technique allows me to do that. So I think that's the answer to your question. Those things.
Gotcha. Well, when we start seeing those gains in competition this year, we'll be seeing them in a brand new Nike kit. A couple weeks ago, you announced you've officially, finally signed with Nike. So, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
How good does it feel to have a pro contract signed? Like, I know that's sort of for so many throwers, that's just like such a nice kind of security blanket to have.
Yeah. I mean, just the recognition just means so much to me, honestly. I think it's so you probably don't know this, but after the video I posted about not being sponsored, I was asked on national television about not being sponsored, and that interview pretty much went viral and got me a lot of like good context, but also some brand deals in the Netherlands. So
I've got to start learning Dutch so I can keep up with this.
now I think you or Bo posted a video in Dutch about how the discus flies on the wind. So that was actually very funny to see. So I was wondering if one of you two, maybe it was Bo,
That must
but
have been Bo.
yeah, but I was wondering if he could maybe speak a word or two in Dutch. I'll ask him the next time. Um, what were we talking about again?
Nike
Yeah, Nike. Yeah,
being on
so
the TV
they're
show and
yeah, so a lot has happened since then, and I think, like you said, the financial security that comes from all those good things that happen after an interview just feels so nice. I I honestly was someone that did think about, can I buy this premium product of grocery or should I really not? Like it subconsciously it went pretty far. Um, and to never or never to not have to worry about that anymore for at least a couple of years, it's just really nice. But I think the recognition means even more to me, and I think to um, get the system to change and for more throwers to be signed, or more different looking athletes than what they maybe think they can use for models, is going to be the biggest change that's needed. So, yes, it's super nice, and I feel very recognized by getting his contract, but I also hope that it's not just going to be me that gets the contract.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, it's always the throwers signing contracts feels unfortunately like it's just so few and far between that it's like a big like celebration when something happens, which it's I'm glad that it happened to you, but it does, like you said, kind of suck that that's just the environment that this side of the sport has to exist in still.
right, right. You see so many other events where, like, not a single Diamond League competitor doesn't wear a kit, you know? So,
Yeah.
for so many of us to not have a uniform on is just ridiculous in my eyes. And it needs to change. And I'm really grateful that Nike does want to support me in that way. So that's a really good start. But I do hope that the system's going to change, and I do see that commercial value in other throwers enough to sponsor them as well.
Yeah. When I guess the last couple years after you graduated, did you like have excuse me, did you like have a job that was helping to support you, or are you able to kind of scrap together life as a full-time thrower even while unsponsored?
Um, so we do have a minimum wage stipend that we get from our government. So that's, for me, that was always enough to live off of. I'd That's like 20 grand a year or something,
Hmm.
and in the US that would be really scrappy to live off of that
Yeah.
maybe. In the Netherlands, I think it's doable for sure. So that's what I lived off of mostly, and then the prize money from the past couple of years also really helped. So I never had to really start a job, which I'm super grateful for. But I just really enjoy doing things next to my throwing. So for example, I started a foundation against sexual harassment in sports. I made some of those journals that you may be seeing, and like I'm always working on some things like
Hmm.
entrepreneur things, but it's not for the money, fortunately. So yeah.
Does Dutch athletics like provide any sort of support or anything?
Um, so the money that we're getting from the government goes through the head sports federation that stands above all the little federations, like
Hmm.
all the sports. Um, and then the funding that all the federations have is also through that big overlapping um, company. So what the federation does is actually also really nice, because they get that money and they usually spend it on training camps for us. And um, I mean, if you have other big, I can't really think of an example, but like other big things that you would need, you could probably discuss it with them and they could possibly help out. But mostly they fund the training camps, which is already really helpful.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Yorinda, I'm very excited that you were finally able to get that deal, and it's very exciting to see another thrower in a Nike kit, and we can't wait to see what's in store for you the rest of this season. So, best of luck, and thanks for finding the time today to talk to me a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much.